Have you ever thought about the things that surround you that you don't even see? We're going to think about that on Now What Devotions from Trinity Lutheran in Cyrus out at the park. So I am over at our local state park and enjoying the spring. And I'm thinking about this. We've had a lot of rain recently around here, and so all the ponds are pretty high. And, you know, sometimes I think we don't notice the water we're breathing in the pond that we're in. Let me say more about that. So, in these ponds are all these fish and animals. Like right over here at the end of this dock behind me here, you can see that. There's a big old snapping turtle that lives off the end of that dock, and I've seen him getting bigger every year for the last, 12, 13 years now. And he's got moss growing on his, he's a big guy. But I doubt he stops to think too much about the water that he's breathing, right? Okay, turtles don't breathe water, fish don't breathe water, they breathe air. I know that, but think of it, just go with me with a metaphor here. The fish in the pond aren't really considering that they've got really clean water to breathe. And yet it affects all of them. And I guess they couldn't really switch ponds. Maybe the turtle could. It's a very similar thing that goes on with people. We're in all kinds of communities, all kinds of ponds, and we don't always consider that we are surrounded by toxicity sometimes by clarity, sometimes by muddy waters. Like we don't always think about that. So our text for the week, we're in the book of John, and Jesus says, if you live in me, and this is live in the sense of move into the neighborhood, right? So abide. If you live in me, I will live in you. Or I live in you, you live in me, I live in the Father. So there's a lot of abiding going on. And I just got to thinking about the way we don't always consider what it is we surround ourselves with, right? Let's say somebody spills oil in this pond. Please don't. But if somebody were to do that, it would affect all of the creatures in that area. And they might be born into that and not even know it. They might not even have eyes for the thing that is killing them, even though they're surrounded by it. And that is actually very similar to what it is that we live with as humans. We live in a world that we know is not right. And yet it's beautiful and it's good, but something's wrong and we can't fix it. So we call that sin. And the symptom of this brokenness in the world and in humanity leads to symptoms. And the symptoms of that are sins, right? So when we are being selfish or trying to survive, when we're trying to get the best for ourselves because we can't really know if anyone else can do it, when we blame people for their mistakes and yet don't help them, those are symptoms of the fallenness that surrounds us. And in the same way that these fish can't really get up and switch ponds, we actually, I think, live between a lot of ponds, but all the ponds share one big river, right? One big ocean. And that is, we live in a beautiful world created by God that loves us, but the sin is something we have to deal with. Jesus suggests to us that rather than we try to leave the pond, he's just going to move right into the neighborhood. When you think of the folks in your life, do you always, are some of those ponds that you inhabit, some of those circles of friends, or maybe your work or school or the different communities you inhabit, are some of those maybe muddier waters or maybe a little toxic, or are those really generative and really healing and redeeming for you? Are different ponds giving you different aspects of life? Jesus' solution to the problem, God's solution to the problem of the fallenness, of the sin that we all live in and breathe in every day, is to just move into the neighborhood, into our hearts. It's sort of like, if your life is being hurt, I'm going to give you my life, which is exactly what Jesus did. So for this week, I encourage you to think about it. Are there ways you could influence the pond around you for good? Are there ponds that maybe you should remove yourself from? Have you thought about the ways you're breathing in goodness and maybe toxicity in your life? I'm Pastor Chris, signing off for now.